Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Characters at Large presents CALtalks. My name is Connor Woodward, and I'm joined here with Joel E. Sanchez and Kenny Fleeger. We're going to be discussing some comics that we think can really help you get into the comic industry as a whole, and that we think will be just general fun reads for anyone looking for new stuff. So, first off, I'd like to introduce Joel E. Sanchez. Go ahead and say hi to the people.
Oh, hello everyone. Connor, it's a pleasure to be here, especially with one of my closest friends, myself.
And Kenny, go ahead and say hi.
Hello, it's me. The thing that you just said.
That's close enough. So like I said in the introduction, we're going to be talking to you about some old comics that we really like, and for one of us, something new that he would like to share with everyone. So Joel, you want to go ahead and give the people what they came here for?
Yes, today I'm going to be talking about a series that launched in 2020. It's a mini published by Boom Studios called Alienated, written by Simon Spurrier, with art by Chris Wildgoose and colors by Andre May. So, something you guys should know is that I'm very much a weekly comic buyer. I have a pull list at my local shop, and one of the series that I was having pulled for me was Alienated as it was coming out. I read it issue by issue, inevitably reading all 6. And if it's anything, I also bought the trade as soon as it was available that following fall. But enough about that. Let's actually talk about the story here. Alienated is a story following 3 teenagers, all named Sam. We have a woman named Samantha, Samir, and Samuel. They're all high schoolers at a local school in a small town where nothing really happens. You hang out with your friends day in and day out, and, before you know it, you're off to college. But as we all know, high school is different for everyone. Not everyone has the social highs or the social lows. It's just different. And this story really focuses on kind of what everyone brings with them, and that sometimes you will never really know what everyone's carrying. For better or worse. The story starts with Samuel moving into town with his mother, who is a cop at the local precinct. Actually, I believe she's a detective. And Samuel has an ego problem. I won't say he has it too big, but he desires to be known by a greater audience than just, his mother. He's had to move around, and life's been hard, as you can imagine, moving around. You don't really get to keep a lot of your connections, or rather nurture them into being, favorable and, what everyone considers valuable. He meets Samir and Samantha, who are also type loners in the school, and they form a bond over the alien they find, hence the name Alienated. His name is Chip. Chip is adorable, very lovingly rendered by Chris Wildgoose in the story as like this blue totem looking thing that looks fluid and can spawn arms. But because this is a story about learning to really decide what's important in your life, Chip will grant them the powers to do what their hearts desire, and you'll learn when you're young that your heart's desires doesn't necessarily mean what's good for you. And I kind of would just leave it at that. If I went any further, I'd probably be spoiling a lot of the cool things that I'm hoping anyone who's interested can experience for themselves.
Does Chip ever adopt the name Sam so they can be a part of the club?
No. He kind of just really feels he digs the name Chip. It's really sweet. I think Samantha is the one who gives it to them. It's I don't want to know how to really classify it, but it's all right. Yeah, no. He never adopts the name Sam.
Well, that's a little bit of a spoiler. I thought you were trying to stay away from that.
That's not cool. You tricked me.
No, so what you mean is that he hasn't adopted the name Sam yet.
Sure.
He can neither confirm nor deny.
Yeah, so something I want to also highlight about this book is that what it does, rather, I think it's mostly the lifting that Andre May and Chris Wildgoose do with just the visual storytelling in the book. There's a lot of panels that just appear that sure it could be bogged down by text boxes because Simon Spurrier has a vision for the way the story is supposed to go, but there are a lot of quiet moments where you just sit there and revel in what the characters themselves are experiencing, and I think it's just really powerful. There's a lot of conversations where the three Sams are conversing within their own minds because they get a mind link due to Chip. I won't really tell you how bad that goes. But it's just really cool to see the medium pushed. There are a lot of cool panel layouts that have inspired me to see how far they could have pushed before they became, unconventional. But man, oh man, like, if there was ever really just a modern story to get into and have it be, short, it's 6 issues. Like, you can get through that in an afternoon if you really wanted to. But I can honestly recommend anyone to pick up the trade of this. It was relatively cheap. It was like about $20 USD. And I can't again tell you enough about how good of a time this was. Not only just as a long-term comics reader, but as someone who is looking for just something new. I'm not a teenager anymore, but I can say that I enjoy being able to see stories told from that perspective, no matter how cliche it may be at times, because we were all that age at some point.
So I have 2 questions for you. The first one, if you were to describe the story in like 2 or 3 sentences, and that's kind of like a soft 2 or 3 sentences. But like, what would you say to hook someone in?
Yes. Remember how hard it was to really make sure that people understood you? Well, you're not the only person to experience that or have that sensation when you're young. And the story really focuses on, again, the things we carry with us by choice and sometimes not by choice.
Fair enough. Second question I got for you is, how would you describe the art that's going on?
Well, Connor, I'm glad you asked. For the first time in my life as a comic reader, I have found actual renders of people in high school that legitimately look like they're in high school. It's kind of hard because nowadays, because of Hollywood, we're led to believe that early 20s-year-olds can look like high schoolers. And it's just not the case. I'm sorry to break it to you, but when I was 18, I didn't look like a 20-year-old. I can tell you that. So the art really feels vibrant because, again, the coloring thanks to Andre May. But I haven't really seen art like Chris Wildgoose's before, so much so that I am really considering buying his art book and some of the concept arts that he made for the series, because it says on the back of the book that he was credited for doing a series called Batman Nightwalker and a Batgirl series. And I'm not a huge fan of like the Bat family, but I would gladly read either of those stories just to see more of Chris Wildgoose's art. It's
cool to hear, especially because, Boom has been, for lack of a better term, like booming recently. Because like I can speak from experience. The frickin' Power Rangers run that Boom Studios is doing right now. Holy crap, man. Some of the art in that is fantastic. And you could take any panel, any page, and like frame it, and it would look good.
Yeah.
So it's really cool to see that Boom just is constantly bringing on these really talented artists to like push their stories.
Yeah, and something that I saw tossed around is that Boom Studios is one of the only publishers in comics that's not afraid to use these unconventional art styles that other publishers don't really feel privy to using. And forgive me if I didn't use that word correctly. But like you mentioned with Power Rangers, they have some of the most premier talent working on just their covers alone too. And it's insane. Like my partner, one of her favorite comic artists is Jen Bartel, and she does a lot of amazing cover work for Power Rangers as well.
Can confirm. She's I can't put it into words to like describe some of the art that just goes into some of the stuff that Boom puts out. It's breathtaking.
Yeah, I can keep talking about the story, but I feel like it's best if I try to pass the reins if anyone else is ready.
Yeah, of course. Kenny, what'd you bring for us today?
So I I guess Joel was trying to take shots at me by saying he's not too big of a fan of the Bat family.
Oh, definitely not.
Considering that I wanted to shine some light on Batman Hush, because, well, first of all, everyone knows Batman. Batman's not exactly someone who needs an introduction. But on top of that, it's one of my favorite Batman stories, just in general. So I just wanted to shed some light on this one. As far as Joel's entry goes, it was very beginner-friendly. Not having to do a bunch of research as to why there was an alien invasion, Marvel, before you can get into this comic that you're trying to read. So Joel tried to bring on a little bit of that aspect, whereas with DC Comics, there's chances are you're gonna get introduced to some branching ideas and stories and characters, but Batman Hush manages to keep it a little bit more contained than the DC and Marvel stories tend to be. And not only that, but if there's ever a point where, I don't know, there's some backstory needed on something, then you do get a little bit of backstory. There's a little bit of flashbacks for Batman throughout this one. They never seem to bite off more than they can chew. They're bringing in some of his rogues gallery. You get to see like Catwoman, Killer Croc, Poison Ivy, Riddler, and you get this fresh look at Hush, who he's a lesser known villain and one of my favorite Batman related characters. And on top of that, Nightwing is my favorite superhero, just period. And he gets a nice little spotlight here. Everyone gets to make their mark in this story. You get a little bit of Superman,
Yeah, Superman gets a little bit more than just a little look. He gets his jaw socked, man.
Yeah, he gets a fist to the face. That's his moment.
Glorious.
Yeah. but in all seriousness, it is a lot of fun, and you get to see Batman really be a detective. Joel and I were talking a bit ago about really how the movies kind of fail to get that whole personification of Batman, like the full image of him. And that he is more so a detective than a crime fighter. And you get to see that detective work get into play, as Hush is a real big, mystery solving, mind game kind of guy, with his whole shtick. So it's not only good representation of Batman and all the characters around him, but my favorite part, is the art. This comic was worked on by, Jeph Loeb, Jim Lee, Scott Williams, Richard Starkings, and Alex Sinclair as writer, artist, inker, letterer, and colorist, respectively. And Jim Lee's art is just chef's kiss. It is I look to it as like my biggest inspiration for my art, because when it comes down to it, it's clean is the best way to put it. Really, it's crisp. There's not too much going on, but it still manages to be detailed, There's a lot of really big, charming and confident panels in here that span over more than one page. Like how Connor mentioned, Superman getting punched in the face. That one is one that takes up 2 pages. Or there's one really cool one where it's Nightwing and Batman running through the Batcave, heading to the Batmobile, and Nightwing asks him, which one are we taking? And it's got all the Batmobiles throughout Batman's history that have ever been made up to that point are just sitting in a Batcave. So it's got some really cool stuff going on, nice writing, and like I said, you get to see that detective aspect of him, which in the most popular media right now you just don't get to see. So it's nice to get that in.
Yeah, I think the closest thing that we have, and it's been a while since I've read Batman Hush, and it is really, really good. But the closest thing in modern media that we have to credit Batman as, world's greatest detective is the Batman Arkham games. Mm-hmm. They and that's even only a little bit, because they don't focus a whole lot on the detective stuff. It's kind of part of it, but Batman really shines when he uses his brains over his fists. And I think that Batman Hush is a really good example of that.
Exactly.
I do have a question, Kenny. Would you consider this a celebration of the character and its mythos?
I would say so. Mythos, I'd say less so. I'd consider the focus more on him and not the entirety of the Bat family, but it's got all these familiar faces, that it's bringing back, and it's not letting them all of them stay for too long. It's not saturating the story too much with a bunch of rolling moving parts. But it knows exactly where to draw the line, I say, and that is the most triumphant part of it. The most impressive aspect of it, that it can be a celebration while not taking too much. Trying to let too much in.
So, what year was this book published, or at least what printing do you have?
It went from 2002 to 2003.
Dang, I thought this was the late aughts book.
I did too, actually.
Yeah.
God, is it really that old?
Yeah, it is. And the thing is, it kind of doesn't even feel old, really.
No, and especially looking at the art.
Yeah.
You would not expect this to come out in early 2000s. Early 2000s was plagued a lot by, remnants of the 90s with the big bulky designs, excessive belts and whatnot. But dang, that's crazy.
Yeah, thanks, Jim
I didn't
Lee.
know that.
You didn't even clean up your own mess.
Yeah, exactly. It's all thanks to Jim Lee.
Jim Lee might have created, just with his art, a timeless Batman story.
Oh God, don't even.
Which is really cool to think about.
Yeah, it's a testament to how iconic he is, just in general. Not even just for comics, but just if I'm gonna think of any art style, I could look to Saga, because Fiona Staples, her art is fantastic, and it's pleasing to the eye. But this one is just well rounded in every aspect for me. It's just so stellar.
It is one of, if not the Batman stories to read.
Yeah.
When I think of essential Batman stories, I think of Batman Hush, Death in the Family, and Death of the Family. Those are the three that immediately and Killing Joke. Okay, fine, Killing Joke.
Well,
yes.
If we're gonna list off, Batman stories that are essential, we could go all night. Nightfall is an incredible one.
Man. Yeah, Nightfall, No Man's Land. We'll have to move on because I can talk a lot about Batman.
So for Batman, you talked about how Batman Hush is a great way to show more of the character for what he is, and against how he's being portrayed by Hollywood here. What is a few things, if not one thing, you feel that Hollywood could learn from Hush that they should maybe look to, say, apply to the new Matt Reeves Batman, or even any Bat property that comes out after that?
That's a good question.
So this is something that they really hit with their same era, 2002, 2003, that
early
2000s cartoons, but it's that Batman is not just this gloomy guy. There is that darker aspect to him than some other characters, but deep down he is still a person, and whether or not he still believes him to be Bruce Wayne, as he considers himself Batman through and through, he still has relationships, he still has people that he cares about, and he still cares about all the people that he doesn't know too, because ultimately he's in it for the people. And you get to see some of that. You get to see his appreciation for Nightwing, and you get to see his relationship with Catwoman, and like I said, whenever there's some aspects of the story where they sprinkle in some flashback, you get to see childhood friendships and all that. And so just seeing Batman as a person, not just the crime fighting machine that they tend to paint him as, with a dark backstory and a dark outlook. You get to see him be a person, and that one is at this point refreshing.
So what I've brought this week, describing it, it is what I believe is one of the most quintessential stories in comics, as well as what I would say to be a perfect jumping off point, and that is Ultimate Spider-Man by Brian Michael Bendis. It is, I can't say enough good things about this story. You get to see, prior to the whole Tom Holland MCU Spider-Man that we got, where he's actually in high school and he doesn't look like he's 25 like Andrew Garfield, you get to see this. I think he starts off the story at 16, maybe 15.
15. Yeah.
But you get to see him, evolve. You get to see him deal with his new powers and deal with this, responsibility that he has after he, gets bitten by the radioactive spider. And it's really refreshing to see him, he doesn't start off as being this complete badass Spider-Man. He is still very much this teenager who doesn't know what he's doing. And watching him kind of like struggle through his rogues gallery as they're starting to appear, because this is like the beginning. It's not, like and I won't get into too much continuity stuff with Marvel, but the 616 universe, the main line, that's been going on since forever. But, Ultimate
63.
Spider-Man is, God, it's just really cool to just watch this entire world be built around you. And it's such a cool place to start, because you get introduced to, and granted they are the Ultimate Universe's counterparts, but you get to meet like Captain America, the X-Men, Daredevil. You get to see all of these characters in this new form, and you get to see Spider-Man dealing with you get to see him dealing with all of this, just all this new information. And it's really, really fun to watch. And the art in it is freaking fantastic. Just covers aside, because the covers are basically like wall posters. You can put those things up anywhere. But just the amount of motion that is depicted and the crispness of the art, it's very much its own style, aside from like what you would attribute to modern times. It's a little bit, you can tell that it's from like the early 2000s, just the vibe that you get from the art. But holy cow, man, it's really good.
Like, I agree with you. Mark Bagley's art during the entire, I don't know if he did the entire Ultimate Spider-Man run with Bendis, but he at least started the first 3 volumes, which is what I have read myself. And you're right, it does come off a little dated reading it in the modern times, but it's not so distracting. Like when you read something with Frank Quitely as the artist, it's just, I don't know about you, I just can't get behind Quitely, no matter how good he works well with Grant Morrison. Anywho, going back to actual Ultimate Spider-Man, you're right. Like, if there's ever a story to give to someone who loves the character Spider-Man, whether it be from the films, cartoons, merchandising, whatever, and you give them something that they can read from beginning to end and have it be contained, it is Ultimate Spider-Man. There's no outside continuity to bog it down. It ends. It actually has an end, which is fantastic, because when you're in the 616, nothing has an end, because it's just not the way things are set up to be. And there's no return to basics ever, which is the glorious thing, because I feel as a long-term comic reader and especially being a fan of a character like Spider-Man, when you get to return to basics, it feels, at least to me, like whiplash. Like, wait, we're already back here? Like, what happened to all the story I just read? Does it not matter anymore? And the answer is, like, it matters. It mattered. Just not anymore, because the continuity has to keep going.
Now, Joel, you've kind of opened up a bit of Pandora's box there, because you mentioned 616, and I feel like now we gotta dip into that a little bit.
Mm-mm. We certainly do not. We don't.
But we can.
But we should. That could be a different episode. But yeah, Connor, you're like, what's really cool for me when you let me borrow those first 3 volumes was being able to actually see Peter Parker before he was Spider-Man and get used to and building what Spider-Man meant to him before what it meant to everyone else. And even seeing things like seeing him meet MJ, seeing him meet like a punk version of
Gwen Stacy.
Gwen Stacy, and that threw me for a loop.
Dude, I love punk Gwen Stacy. She's great.
And it's just, again, one of the biggest reasons to read the story is just to be there from the beginning and effectively know that you're at the beginning of this character's life. The life as Spider-Man, not Peter as like a newborn.
No, and it's really cool because you really get to experience Peter grow. And that's not something that you get a lot in a lot of like mainline continuity comics because these characters are already established. What more can they do like character development wise that hasn't already been done or hasn't already been done in said continuity? So seeing this version of Peter be able to like grow up and grow into his powers and become, the
ultimate Spider-Man.
Yeah, the ultimate Spider-Man, for lack of a better term. You really get this. It's just exhilarating to read. It's so much fun. And, with every passing issue, every bad guy that he beats the crap out of, and every person he saves, you get to really see this Peter start to become his own version of who Spider-Man is, and thusly like become quite possibly one of the most popular and well-regarded versions of this character in history.
Yeah, like the Insomniac Spider-Man story, and even the character takes a lot of inspiration. I would claim, I'm not going to say it's my official statement on it, but I would claim it takes a lot of inspiration from the Ultimate Spider-Man run by Bendis and Bagley. Not only that, but Bendis, through this run, created one of the most popular characters of that Spider-Man mythos, Miles Morales.
Yes. And Miles is such an important character, not only because of who he is being an African-American and Puerto Rican superhero, but because he picks up this mantle of Spider-Man after it's essentially passed down to him, and he excels and has, grown to almost rival Peter in a sense of who is your favorite Spider-Man. That's cool. That's really cool.
It is really cool.
Well, going a little bit, I guess, off of the whole Peter or Miles thing, because we've gotten a lot of movie adaptations of Spider-Man, whether it be Peter or Miles. How would you say the movies' versions of either one compare to how he's written here?
The most accurate is definitely Tom Holland. Because, for as cool as the costume was in Andrew Garfield's Amazing Spider-Man, specifically Amazing Spider-Man 2,
heck yeah.
He is not a good Peter Parker. He's too, he's too cool. He's too popular. He's too quippy. But, the mainline MCU films that are going on right now with Tom Holland, he really kind of captures that teenager aspect where he's a little awkward. He doesn't know the right thing at the right time, and he's still kind of figuring it out as he goes. So that would have to be my answer, is that Tom Holland is more close to the version of Ultimate Spider-Man.
My personal take on it is I've only seen one really good take on the wall crawler, and is unfortunately the canceled series of Spectacular Spider-Man. I've taken from us too soon. 2 seasons, and within 2 seasons, it convinced me hands down that no other adaptation of the character was going to be as good as this. Because as good, and I agree with you, Connor, the MCU version when Tom Holland's portrayal is excellent and really brought the character and made me excited again to see him on the big screen and see him, especially to see him a part of a team, because that's something we never really got with the other two Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. We never really got to see them be a part of a team.
Yeah, it was a lot of self-contained stories.
Yeah, and again, Spectacular Spider-Man, if you guys don't know what it is, it's an animated series that aired. It was the last one that aired actually before the Disney acquisition happened with Marvel. So what was canceled gave way to Ultimate Spider-Man on Disney. which also is a good show, but not as good as Spectacular Spider-Man. It really takes Peter from the beginning. We're talking him in high school, him learning how to build his costume, him learning to improve his costume against the rogues gallery that he was building. Taking a lecture on realizing that he has to make an insulated suit, and all these cool things that really show how creative and
ingenuitive.
Just the ingenuity that Peter has, because Peter is one of the most brilliant minds in the Marvel universe, like in the top 10 easily. And I think that's something that's not played on a lot because he has superpowers, but his mind is one of his greatest strengths, and that's never been enhanced by his powers. What about you, Kenny? Can you answer your own question?
About which movie adaptation is the closest to Batman?
Well, it doesn't have to be Batman because we're past that.
My bad. I'm sorry. I thought you were trying to say it pertaining to my story. Ultimately, yeah, Tom Holland is the best movie adaptation because you've got Tobey Maguire, who's nailing Peter more so than Spider-Man, and you've got Andrew Garfield, who's nailing Spider-Man more than Peter, and Tom Holland seems to have that balance a little bit more down. Sorry, I was taken out of the loop there. As soon as you mentioned Spectacular Spider-Man, I got to thinking about I don't remember which Spider-Man it was, but the Spider-Man show where Drake Bell voiced him.
Ultimate Spider-Man.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I got to think about Ultimate Spider-Man.
Well, Connor, thank you for sharing Ultimate Spider-Man. I'm glad that as another fan of the webhead, you got to talk about it, because I chose to talk about something that wasn't Spider-Man related, unfortunately.
No, like I said, if you are looking for the comic to get someone interested in the medium, or a already existing fan of the movies that or TV shows that Spider-Man has been in, tell them to pick up the first volume of Ultimate Spider-Man, because they will not regret it. I remember reading it for the first time. God, I think I was 8 when I was reading those. I remember reading them for the first time, and I think I just had a huge smile on my face. I must have read those things, because when I gave them to you, Joel, they were pretty beat up.
They weren't too bad, but they definitely had some love.
Yeah, they were very pre-loved, because I think I have, and I'm not kidding, I think I read through every volume that I had probably 10 times when I was younger, just because it's really good. And even as a little kid, I enjoyed the heck out of it.
Well, now that we talked about every story, I have a question now to ask the three of us.
Yeah.
Of the ones shared, which do you think is the best to be showing to someone who is a little on the fence about comics, not just because of superheroes, but just, maybe they're just not really into reading and they're looking for that push?
If I had to pick one, I'd say Ultimate Spider-Man. The thing is, Alienated really intrigues me because it's not superhero related. Instead, it's more extraterrestrial in origin. And, a lot of modern comics, save for DC and Marvel, are kind of straying away from superheroes as the baseline. So, Alienated might be a really good recommendation for people who might not be the biggest fan of superheroes, or maybe are looking for something a little bit different. So Ultimate Spider-Man, but tentatively Alienated, just because it intrigues me.
Well, for me, I think it ultimately is a bit of a loaded question, because we are bringing to the table 3 different stories with 3 different characters, whereas you could go with Batman Hush for a murder mystery, a sort of detective drama. You could instead be looking for sci-fi and find Alienated. Or whereas maybe someone's trying to find their little gateway into comics, and they really like Spider-Man, where, Ultimate Spider-Man is going to be the best choice. I think it comes down to the person. But, I mean, since I chose Batman Hush, I guess I'm just going to choose Batman Hush.
Attaboy.
Well, that makes that easy. That's fine.
But yeah, I might end up stopping by your house at some point to pick up those those volumes because Alienated sounds intriguing.
Well, it's just one volume, Connor. Stinky boy. So, obviously, with all these stories, they're all picked up. They can easily be picked up on, like, Amazon or through Barnes & Noble. But I would encourage you to find maybe a local shop, a comic shop. COVID's been hard, and not a lot of these shops were given the love or even given really a chance to try to figure a new way to make business, and just inevitably died. They rely on you to, go there and show your interest in not only them, but the books that they carry. So I would encourage anyone who's interested in Batman Hush, Ultimate Spider-Man, or Alienated to pick it up at their local store. I know with the internet age, it's very easy to just do the 5-finger discount, but think about what you're really accomplishing at the end. Like, you should try to read it in a physical format if you can. Not to say the digital is bad, but nothing can really beat holding the thing in your hand.
No, and that's so very true. And, supporting small businesses, but, more importantly, I guess for the sake of who we are and what we're doing, like, support your local comic shop if you like comics. There's one around you. You just gotta find it. And they kind of rely on people coming in and picking up those issues that they aren't sure about, and then coming back and buying 5 volumes because you have no self-control. I might just be speaking from personal experience there, but still, support them. Like, they're there for you. It's not the other way around.
No, you're completely right. They are there to help you find your next passion, essentially.
And, plus, along with that, if you do, head over to your local comic shop and pick something up that you're looking to get into, maybe it's not what we recommended. We'd love to know.
Most definitely.
Yeah, let us know in the doobly-doo down below.
Yeah, seriously, if you have any recommendations, not only for us, but anyone that might be listening, please, leave a comment. It would, if you inspire someone to pick up a book, that is a huge feeling of just, satisfaction. It's really cool to get someone hooked into something, especially when it comes to comics.
Yeah, I've definitely gotten, I think, probably 4 people in the past 2 years into being consistent comic readers now. Like, they either read every night or they read every week, and some of them even go buy their own stuff weekly now with me.
Yeah.
It's a great feeling.
It's been my goal ever since I found Saga to get as many people into it as possible, and
and you did that.
Yeah.
That's like, you got me.
Saga is great. I need to read more of the volumes. So if you like what we have done today and you want to hear more, make sure that you check out our Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. We even have a Reddit and a subreddit. Characters at Large are the handles. Make sure you check us out. We got some really cool stuff up coming around the corner. And make sure to, like and subscribe and all that jazz. But Joel, we have something pretty exciting that released, very recently as of time of recording this. Would you like to let the people know what exactly that is?
Oh, I most certainly would. About a week ago from the day we're recording, which appears to be January 25th.
Mm-hmm.
So on the 20th of this month of the year 2021, CharactersAtLarge released their second comic book, Death of a Hero, illustrated by Amy Kyle, written by Logan Friedman, and lettered by Kay Deutsch, with editing by Annie Heffley. This is, again, our second comic, and we're very proud to be able to have the ability to release the second one to you guys so soon. So if you guys haven't already read it or didn't know it existed, well, go ahead and head over to our website, CharactersAtLarge.com, and go ahead and read it for free. And tell your friends, because just because you can read it for free, it also means that they can read it for free.
And their parents and siblings and cousins, just spread it. Seriously.
Yeah, your therapist, your masseuse, your pediatrician, your dog. I don't care. Go ahead. It's free.
Yeah, it's free.
Free.
What do you have to lose other than your time?
Free 99.
Free 99.
All right. So thank you all for coming to listen, and especially you. Yes, that's right. You listening to this right now. I'm addressing you personally.
Oh, thank you.
Todd.
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 Thank you so much for listening to this. And we hope to get you back here on the next episode where we're going to talk about some more comic stuff. So thank you, everybody. We hope you have a good night and a good day.